You beg for attention. You beg for respect. You beg for love. And the more you beg, the less you receive. Listen closely, because this is where most men lose the game before it even begins. Begging is not humility. Begging is not honesty. Begging is the silent announcement that you have already surrendered control. In every age I observed, inside royal courts, among generals, lovers, allies, and enemies, the one who begs has already placed himself beneath the other. Power does not leave dramatically. It leaks out the moment desperation becomes visible. When you ask from fear of loss, your voice changes, your posture changes, your value changes. The world is brutally sensitive to this shift. Humans are predators of weakness, even when they pretend to be compassionate. The instant you beg for attention, for validation, for loyalty, you tell the other side that you need them more than they need you, and power always flows toward the one who needs less. I speak as a narrator of reality, not morality. In the politics of human behavior, begging is a strategic error. It creates imbalance. It hands leverage to the other party without negotiation. Once leverage is lost, respect follows it into the grave. You may still be tolerated, you may still be used, but you will no longer be obeyed, admired, or feared. Observe how people treat those who plead. They delay their responses. They test boundaries. They withdraw affection, not because they are evil, but because human nature reacts instinctively to hierarchy. Begging places you at the bottom. Even if your words are polite, your emotional posture kneels, and no one respects what kneels voluntarily. In my time, rulers were advised never to appear needy, even when their kingdoms were starving. Why? Because allies sense weakness faster than enemies. The moment you beg, you invite exploitation disguised as help. You teach others how to treat you. You train them to give you less while demanding more. Begging does not soften hearts, it sharpens opportunism. Understand this deeply. Effort does not create value, scarcity does. When something is always asking to stay, to be chosen, to be noticed, it becomes common. Common things are replaceable. Replaceable things are abused. Begging accelerates your own disposability. The more you plead, the cheaper you appear. The more you explain, the less convincing you sound. Cold power is built on the ability to withstand silence. When you cannot tolerate being ignored, you rush to fill the gap with apologies, messages, justifications, emotional exposure. Each word you add out of fear pushes you further from authority. Silence, when controlled, terrifies. Begging reassures the other side that they are safe from consequences. This applies everywhere. In relationships, the one who begs for love loses attraction. In work, the one who begs for approval loses respect. In life, the one who begs for fairness receives manipulation. The world does not reward emotional collapse, it rewards self-command. You may think begging shows sincerity. It does not, it shows dependence. Sincerity without leverage is noise. Power listens only to strength wrapped in restraint. The calm man who can walk away without protest communicates more dominance than the desperate man who pours out his soul. If you want to know why people suddenly lose interest when you try harder, this is the reason. You are signaling that you have no alternatives, and the man without alternatives is never dangerous, never respected, never pursued. To stop begging is not to stop feeling, it is to stop advertising your hunger. Hunger should be private, desire should be controlled, because the one who controls his need controls the exchange, controls the pace, controls the outcome, and the moment you remove begging from your behavior, people begin to sense that losing you would cost them something they cannot easily replace. And that is when power quietly returns to your hands as you stand unmoved, watching, saying nothing, deciding whether to stay or leave while the other side feels the pressure of your absence building, growing, tightening, forcing them to question their position, their advantage, their certainty, because the man who does not beg has already stepped out of submission and into the space where decisions are made, where dominance is silent, where control exists without permission, and where the balance begins to shift the moment you refuse to ask for what you already deserve, and instead allow the world to feel what happens when access to you is no longer guaranteed, no longer pleaded for, no longer emotionally discounted, but held back, measured, restrained, and kept behind a wall of self-command that does not explain itself, does not justify itself, and does not reach out to pull anyone closer. because those who want power must learn to let others come to them or feel what it means to be left behind without a word, without closure, without reassurance, without the comfort of knowing you will beg them to stay when they hesitate, when they pull away, when they test you, because the test ends the moment you refuse to participate and instead remain still, unreadable, and unwilling to chase what does not choose you, freely, firmly, and without you lowering yourself even one step below where you stand. Most people misunderstand cold blood. They think it means being heartless, aggressive, or indifferent to human suffering. That misunderstanding keeps them weak. Cold blood is not the absence of emotion. It is the mastery of it. It is the ability to feel everything and reveal nothing. In the games of power I witnessed, the most dangerous men were not the loud or violent ones, but the calm ones who never allowed emotion to vote in their decisions. Emotion is energy. Uncontrolled emotion leaks power. When anger controls you, you become predictable. When fear controls you, you become obedient. When attachment controls you, you become manipulable. Cold blood is the discipline that keeps all three locked behind the walls of self-command. This is not cruelty. This is sovereignty. A man who reacts emotionally hands his opponent the map to his mind. Every outburst is a signal. Every explanation is a weakness exposed. When you show what hurts you, you show where you can be struck. Cold blood denies the enemy that privilege. It keeps your inner world private. Privacy is power. In royal courts, those who reacted were destroyed. Those who remained calm survived long enough to rule. The man who can sit in silence while others provoke him already holds psychological dominance. People mistake his restraint for passivity until they realize too late that he is not passive. He is observing, calculating, waiting. Cold blood allows you to delay action until timing favors you. Cruelty is impulsive. Control is intentional. A cruel man lashes out to satisfy emotion. A cold-blooded man withholds reaction to preserve position. He does not rush to defend his ego. He does not chase validation. He does not correct every insult. He understands that dignity grows when it is not constantly defended. Watch how people behave around someone who cannot be emotionally shaken. They become cautious. They second-guess themselves. They fill silence with nervous words. Emotional unpredictability in others creates comfort. Emotional stability creates pressure. Cold blood forces others to reveal themselves while you remain unreadable. This is especially true when others attempt manipulation. Manipulators rely on emotional hooks. Guilt, fear, urgency, affection. Cold blood breaks every hook. When you do not react to guilt, it loses its sting. When you do not react to provocation, it loses its purpose. When you do not react to praise, it loses its leverage. Many men believe showing emotion makes them authentic. What it actually does is make them accessible. Accessibility lowers perceived value. Cold blood raises it. The less reactive you are, the more weight your actions carry. When a calm man finally speaks, people listen. When he finally moves, people adjust. Cold blood also protects you from self-sabotage. Most damage in life is self-inflicted in moments of emotional heat. Words said too early, decisions made too fast, trust given too freely. Cold blood creates distance between stimulus and response. That distance is where power lives. This does not mean you become cold to justice or principle. It means you stop letting emotion override strategy. You do not seek revenge in anger. You seek advantage in clarity. You do not act to relieve emotional discomfort. You act to improve position. In relationships, cold blood prevents emotional slavery. You do not beg when affection is withheld. You do not panic when silence appears. You do not over-explain when misunderstood. You let actions reveal truth over time. Time is an ally to the composed. In conflict, cold blood wins before the first move. The man who remains calm while others escalate forces them into mistakes. Every raised voice, every desperate message, every impulsive threat weakens the aggressor. Calm absorbs pressure and turns it back without effort. Cold blood is not lack of feeling. It is the refusal to let feelings govern outcomes. It is emotional discipline sharpened into authority. The world is full of emotional men and controlled rulers, and people instinctively follow the latter because stability signals strength and strength signals safety, and safety creates loyalty even when no promises are made, because humans trust those who appear unshaken by chaos. unmoved by provocation, untouched by desperation. And when you become that presence, others adjust their behavior without you asking, without you demanding, without you explaining, because cold blood changes the emotional temperature of every room you enter, lowering the noise, slowing the pace, forcing others to match your composure or expose their instability. And in that imbalance, you gain quiet dominance as you stand centered, measured, and unreachable by emotional games, watching others exhaust themselves while you conserve energy, clarity, and control, knowing that restraint is not weakness but accumulated force, and that every moment you do not react is a moment. Power consolidates within you, tightening its grip as you remain composed, while the world moves around you in confusion, urgency, and noise. Most people fear silence more than rejection. Silence feels like erasure. Distance feels like loss. And because of this fear, they destroy their own value before anyone else has the chance to. They rush to speak. They rush to explain. They rush to close gaps that should have been left open. In the economy of power, nothing is more expensive than what is not immediately available, and nothing is cheaper than what is constantly present. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is pressure. It forces others to think. It forces them to interpret. It forces them to project their own fears and desires onto you. When you speak too much, you remove this pressure. You clarify everything. You reduce mystery. And mystery is one of the oldest forms of power. In the courts I observed, the most influential figures were often the quietest. Not because they lacked opinions, but because they understood timing. Words spoken too early lose weight. Words spoken rarely carry gravity. Silence allows anticipation to build. Anticipation increases perceived importance. The man who is always available becomes part of the background. The man who appears selectively becomes the focal point. Distance works the same way. Proximity creates familiarity. Familiarity breeds comfort. Comfort breeds neglect. Distance disrupts this cycle. When you step back, people are forced to confront your absence. Absence is felt more sharply than presence because it creates uncertainty. Uncertainty demands attention. This is why chasing destroys desire. The more you move toward someone who is pulling away, the more they feel in control. You remove their curiosity. You remove the effort required to keep you. When effort disappears, value collapses. Distance restores balance by reintroducing cost. Silence also protects your internal position. Every explanation is a concession. Every justification is an admission that you seek approval. When you remain silent, you deny others the ability to frame your intentions. You do not rush to correct assumptions. You allow people to sit with their interpretations. Often their assumptions reveal more about them than any explanation you could provide. This does not mean you become absent-minded or irresponsible. It means you become selective. Selective presence increases demand. When your time is not easily accessed, it gains weight. When your attention is not freely given, it becomes valuable currency. Distance is not punishment, it is calibration. It resets dynamics that have drifted into imbalance. When people grow used to your availability, they stop respecting your boundaries. When you withdraw, even briefly, they are forced to reevaluate your position in their lives. Silence also interrupts manipulation. Manipulators rely on reaction. They provoke, bait, and pressure to extract emotional responses. NCE starves these tactics. Distance weakens their influence. Without feedback, their control dissolves. In relationships, silence creates reflection. It allows space for realization. People rarely understand your value while they are consuming it. They understand it when access is reduced. Distance makes consequences visible. In leadership, silence commands attention. The leader who speaks constantly becomes noise. The leader who waits creates expectation. When he finally speaks, direction is followed without resistance. Silence slows the pace of interaction, forcing others to match your rhythm. Distance sets terms without confrontation. Both are tools of power that do not require force, explanation, or permission. The man who masters silence does not rush to defend himself. He understands that time filters truth. The man who masters distance does not cling. He understands that what is meant to stay will move closer on its own. Value is not declared, it is inferred. Silence allows others to infer importance. Distance allows others to feel loss. Together, they reshape perception without conflict, without pleading, without aggression. And when you stop filling every gap with words, when you stop closing every distance with effort, people begin to sense that access to you is not guaranteed, that your presence is earned rather than assumed. And this realization alters behavior more effectively than confrontation ever could, because humans respond to scarcity instinctively, adjusting their priorities, their tone, their respect, as they sense that you are not waiting, not chasing, not explaining, but moving at your own pace, on your own terms, leaving space behind you that they must choose to cross, knowing that silence is no longer emptiness but weight, and distance is no longer loss but leverage, shaping how you are perceived without you ever having to announce your worth or demand recognition, as you remain steady, reserved, and untethered from the need to be constantly seen, heard, or validated, allowing value to rise naturally in the absence you deliberately maintain. Self-respect is not loud, it does not announce itself, it does not threaten, it does not beg to be seen. Self-respect is a posture, and posture is read instantly. Before you speak, before you act, before you make a request, people sense how you see yourself, and they respond accordingly. Obedience does not come from force alone. It comes from the unspoken agreement that you are not someone to be tested lightly. Most people try to earn respect by pleasing others. They compromise boundaries. They tolerate disrespect. They remain available even when undervalued. They believe endurance will be rewarded. It rarely is. What actually happens is simpler and harsher. Tolerance trains behavior. When you accept poor treatment, you signal that it is permissible. Self-respect begins where tolerance ends. In every power structure I observed, those who were respected were those who could LK away, not loudly, not dramatically, quietly. The ability to withdraw without explanation creates authority. It communicates that your presence is conditional, and conditions create order. Self-respect means you do not negotiate your dignity. You do not trade your values for approval. You do not adjust your standards to fit someone else's comfort. This firmness forces others to adjust instead. People obey boundaries they believe will be enforced. When you lack self-respect, others feel it. They push, they test, they delay, they dismiss. When you have it, they hesitate, they clarify, they comply, not because they fear you, but because they sense consequence. Self-respect also shapes how you speak. You do not over-explain. You do not apologize for existing. You do not justify reasonable expectations. Your words are measured because you do not doubt your right to occupy space. This internal certainty affects every interaction. In work, people follow those who do not chase validation. In relationships, attraction grows toward those who do not accept less than they give. In conflict, opposition weakens against those who do not need to win emotionally. Obedience does not mean submission, it means alignment. People align with those who project stability and standards. Chaos follows those who tolerate anything. Self-respect requires discomfort. You will be misunderstood. You will be labeled cold, arrogant, or distant. These labels often come from those who benefited from your lack of boundaries. The moment you enforce self-respect, access changes. This is where many retreat. They mistake resistance for wrongdoing. They mistake pushback for proof they are wrong. In reality, resistance is evidence that the dynamic is shifting. A man with self-respect does not argue about his boundaries. He enforces them. He does not chase apologies. He accepts behavior as information. When patterns do not align with his standards, he withdraws. This consistency builds reputation. People learn what you tolerate and what you do not. Over time, fewer tests occur. Obedience becomes automatic because expectations are clear. Self-respect also protects your inner world. You are not constantly reacting, defending, or repairing damage caused by poor treatment. Your energy is preserved for strategy, growth, and movement. In power dynamics, obedience follows predictability. When others know you will act in alignment with your standards every time, they adjust preemptively. This is authority without aggression. Self-respect does not require dominance displays. It requires restraint, the refusal to engage in dynamics that diminish you, the discipline to leave situations where dignity is compromised. When you respect yourself, you stop seeking permission to exist fully. You stop negotiating your worth. You stop waiting for others to validate what you already know internally, and this internal alignment radiates outward, reshaping how others approach you, speak to you, and treat you. Because humans respond instinctively to certainty, adjusting their behavior to avoid crossing someone who clearly knows where the line is and will not hesitate to step away if it is crossed, creating an unspoken authority that does not demand obedience but naturally receives it as people sense that you are not dependent on their approval, not fearful of their absence, and not willing to remain where respect is optional. And in that quiet refusal to compromise, your presence becomes heavier, your words carry more weight, and your boundaries define the terms of every interaction without you ever needing to raise your voice or explain your standards. This is the final truth that ties everything together. Power does not come from force, volume, or emotion. It comes from restraint. From the moment you stop begging, you reclaim leverage. When you master cold blood, you reclaim control. When you use silence and distance, you reclaim value. And when you live with self-respect, obedience follows without command. This is not about becoming cruel to the world. It is about becoming disciplined with yourself. The world responds not to what you say you deserve, but to what you tolerate and what you are willing to walk away from. Every time you resist the urge to chase, to explain, to plead, you strengthen your position. Every time you choose calm over reaction, distance over desperation, standards over comfort, you shift the balance of power in your favor. Most people remain trapped because they confuse emotion with strength and effort with worth. They exhaust themselves trying to be chosen. The cold-blooded man does not compete for approval. He becomes the standard others must meet. His absence speaks louder than his presence ever could. His silence forces reflection. His boundaries define reality. Understand this as you move forward. People do not change because you ask them to. They change when the cost of losing you becomes greater than the comfort of disrespecting you. When access to you is no longer guaranteed, behavior adjusts. When your dignity is non-negotiable, treatment improves. You were never meant to kneel for attention, affection, or respect. You were meant to stand firm, composed, and self-possessed. Power returns the moment you stop reaching outward for validation and begin holding yourself to a higher internal order, allowing the world to respond to the quiet authority you now carry.